Hi guys and welcome back to another DrAce video, and today I'm going to be showing you how to improve your braking within Ride 5. We're going to take you from this to this in today's braking tutorial. If you enjoy the video and you find it helpful, don't forget to subscribe. Other than that, let's crack on with the video. Now in today's guide I will be using this controller overlay for the video. I am actually using a PS5 controller, but I do like the way this layout works. So on screen right now, everything in green is labelled green because this is all about going, this is about accelerating, it's everything we need to do to actually get moving on the track. Everything labelled in red is to stop the bike, so from the brake, the clutch and the downshift, everything there is included in red. And finally we have the blue option, which is everything else from moving left to right, your electronics, rewind and everything else, which isn't really as important as the rest of the information which is right there on screen. If you want to, go ahead and pause the video now so you can understand what I'm doing for the rest of the video, but if not, let's get on with it. So what we're going to do for this part of the video is we're going to run some laps around the Road America circuit, and if you pay attention to the right hand side of the screen, you'll notice the controller overlay in full effect. Everything that's done there is tracking my position and movements with the analog stick, to the acceleration, to the brakes and even the shifts. Now I am using a PS5 controller as already mentioned, but what I will reiterate is this will work for any particular controller. The only difference being is that each controller has different dead point zones and each one has a slightly different amount of feedback. So you're going to have to try it with how you like it with your controller, but ultimately the lessons will remain the same. It's very important to stay smooth, controlled and precise movements. One thing of advice I would give you is to just relax. There's no reason to hold the controller tight, there's no reason to grip it heavy. Just relax, take it steady, and just control the bike like you would in real life. In real life, the worst thing you could do is to grip really tight, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. Relaxed movements from the acceleration to the brakes. As you can see here, going into turn 11 there, nice and smooth on the brakes. It doesn't need to be a full 100% press. Nice and smooth will get the job done here in Road America and many, many more circuits within Ride 5. A prime braking example is coming up here. There's a braking mark to the left hand side, and we're going to go quite firm for the initial press and then slowly reduce the brake as we approach the apex of the corner. That is called trail braking. Trail braking by releasing the brake ever so slightly as you get closer and closer to the apex. Now on the flip side, if you're approaching the apex of a corner and you're still pressing rather aggressively, still holding on really tight, the front wheel will lock and you're going to lose the front, which will always result in a crash. So you need to be very careful with the trail braking. It's a bit more of an advanced skill, let's say, but it's something I believe everyone can do with just a bit of practice. So another point I want to move on to now as we go to a very hard aggressive braking zone into turn 1 is to understand when to brake aggressively and when not to. There's a lot of corners which you can brake quite firm, but you mustn't stay on the brakes for too long. Ride 5 does not agree with heavy button presses from the acceleration to the trigger. Although it may look like I'm pushing full down on the acceleration, it's a gradual press. So looks like we're going to do here with the brakes. So first initial is sort of smooth and then into a hard aggressive braking. Now it depends on the corner, of course it does. If it's a straight line you can brake quite firm, but going uphill or downhill, any form of undulation, I'm going to be braking calmly first and then apply the brakes as we go stronger. Now of course another little tip as well is to always use the rear brake in the right corners. The rear brake doesn't need to be used in every corner. Maybe 80% of the race you can go without. But for any small adjustments, maybe you've run too wide in a corner, don't press any harder on the front brake, incorporate the rear brake. The rear brake on my controller is square, and I find it's a great position to use that rear brake when necessary. Your right thumb is already available to use as the upshift, and when you're braking you can use rear brake there. So as you can see on screen here, went a little bit too deep for turn 11. Instead of going even harder on the front brake and risking a crash, incorporate the rear brake to help you slow down. If it's a really tough hard braking zone, I would incorporate the rear brake quite a lot. If it's not so much, then I would try to avoid when can. I do have a tendency to incorporate the rear brake towards the latter stage of the apex, because if I'm still running a bit too wide and I need to close that gap even further to the apex, the rear brake can be used as your friend. You might see me do that quite a bit, just to position the bike back to where we need to be. Now, something to mention is that I am not changing any setups for this bike, but what I am changing is the electronics. Something I have changed since the second I got early access to this game is to turn ABS off. I'm going to show you an example now with ABS on 4, and show me if you think there's a difference. Personally, for me, it's quite obvious. I don't have the confidence within the braking. It just isn't responsive enough. It feels like the bike just doesn't want to stop. As you can see, the L2 is getting pressed quite hard, but the bike just doesn't want to stop. If you're having difficulties with ABS on anything lower than 4 and you're finding that it's really too sensitive, then you want to keep ABS high. But for myself, I'm rather sensitive, I'm gentle braker. I just can't get the feeling right with ABS 4. Again, with a lot of brake, even rear brake as well, I can't seem to get the bike stopped. Electronics wise for me, I've got to keep ABS off. I will be showing you the difference in a moment between ABS 2 as well as 4, and you'll have to try it from there. But for myself, anything above ABS 0 just does not work for me. I need to go really aggressive on the brakes, and it's not really my style. I would advise, as I mentioned, if you are really struggling and the bike feels too sensitive, definitely consider ABS on 4. But if you're finding the bike won't stop and you're still braking really hard, I would definitely suggest moving over to a lower anti-lock brake system, possibly down to 2 or possibly down to even 1. It's worth trying, and the thing you can't get wrong here in Ride 5 is to try as many things as possible. Now, as I mentioned, I am not using a setup. Everything is completely default. That way there's complete transparency between myself and you guys as well. You can have the same experience I am having with the same electronics and the same bike setup as well. But for this lap, again, struggling to even stop the bike again. ABS is really hindering me here, and I just wanted to show you guys the difference between each anti-lock brake system. So once we conclude this lap, I'm going to swap over to ABS 2, and I want to see what you guys think of this one. Let me know in the comments section down below, what anti-lock brake system are you using for Ride 5 and which one works best for you. So we've dropped it down to 2 now, and we'll see how we can improve here. If we can improve, of course. So into the very first hard braking zone, still able to brake quite firm, braking quite late as well, but ultimately I felt quite confident with ABS 2. And that was one braking zone. What's it going to be like for the next? So quite firm on the brakes again, able to just reduce the apex, but not quite able to turn in as well as I would have wanted to. Now, of course, another fast approaching undulation for us to tackle here. So onto the brakes we will go in just a moment, hard as we can, trying to stop the bike, just letting off ever so slightly, and we've more or less got the job done with ABS 2. But as you can see, the difference between each ABS is quite large, and the biggest point being is how much pressure you can put on the left trigger until the bike stops. Reducing the ABS requires a more gentle touch, and increasing the ABS can allow you to go quite strong on the brakes, but I do find it very difficult to stop. It doesn't suit my style, it may suit yours, but what I will tell you is I implore you to try each and every single ABS setting there is, from 0 to 4. Try it and let me know how you get on in the comments section down below. Now, of course, today's video was focusing all on the braking. I will have some follow-up guides very, very soon for acceleration and general use of the bike to make sure you have the right riding techniques for Ride 5. So towards the latter stage of the video now, I want to show you some comparisons between each sort of bike you can find in the game, from 250cc to 600 to 800 to 1000cc within Ride 5, and the idea is to see how each bike handles upon the brakes. Now, something I didn't really mention in the first part of the video because it's basically optional, but I do really like using this because it helps me with my braking, and that is pushing backwards on the left analog stick. This might be difficult for people to fathom out because it's not really promoted well in the game, but you can push the rider's weight backwards to steady the rear of the bike. So if the bike is going to go stoppy or to do an endo, pushing backwards on the left analog stick will reduce that effect. Some players don't use it. Personally, I love it, but it's entirely up to you whether you try it or not. So for example here, onto the brakes really firm, going hard as I possibly can on the brakes as well as pushing backwards onto the left analog stick. Personally, I find it helps a lot, just definitely give it a try, see what you think. Now on to the 600cc. I didn't really mention much about the 250cc because it's quite an easy one to pick up and play, but if you're having difficulties, it's basically the same as the 600cc, but you're going to be braking a little bit later. Of course, the bike's not going to reach the same speeds as a 600cc, so it's allowed to brake quite late. But now on to the 600cc, this is the Honda CBR, and of course going into the likes of the old hairpin here, you can still be quite strong, but not really reaching that 100% input. The 100% input makes a really heavy braking marker, only to the likes of the Fogarty S's where you can really go full. Anywhere else, like change direction, you're not really going to be pushing full. We've seen it with the Kawasaki in the Road America, and now we're seeing it here as well. A sharp input, a sharp brake is as much as you can do for corners here in Donington National. So bringing on the power then, we'll look to the Fogarty S's, we'll try and line ourselves up with the rumble strip on the right hand side here and start braking quite aggressively, still pushing backwards on the left analog stick, and that allows us to just gradually move the rider's weight across into the corner, just in a very controlled motion. Across the line, that is a lap done with the 600, so let's move on to the 800cc. So this is the MV Agusta F3 800, a lovely bike, I really like this one a lot, but as you can see, still quite firm on the brakes going into the likes of Redgate, which is turn 1. Now as you can see, there isn't actually much of a massive difference between each bikes, but the bigger they get, the more gentle you'll need to be. So if you're looking for a more forgiving experience, the likes of your 600s and your 800s are a really good spot to be in. The 250cc's, again, they can be pushed quite aggressively as well, but I find that the 600s are the easiest ones to ride. So if you are starting out and you want to fathom out the brakes and you want to really get into the nitty gritty and grips of Ride 5, I definitely recommend starting at either a 600 or an 800. It's just a good balance for you to learn and a good balance for you to really get the feel of the brakes here in Ride 5. So once again, on the straight approaching the Fogarty S's, we're going to brake quite aggressively, and as I mentioned with the Kawasaki, gradually reducing the brake until you get to the apex, and that's when you can then start to trail brake and just reduce that trail brake as you get closer and closer to the apex. So now for the final example of the video, this is your 1000cc. The only difference really here, as you can see, is the braking marker. We're getting further and further behind the brakes rather than closer and closer to the apex. So the smaller the bike, the closer to the apex you're going to start braking, and then alternatively the opposite for a larger bike like this. Now I do find that with these bikes you need to be really sensitive with the brakes. They also have a tendency to really lock up with the front if you're being too aggressive, so just be careful when you do move over to the 1000cc's. A prime example here is into McLaren's. The brakes don't reach the same like they do with the 600s. You can be quite aggressive with the brakes in the others, but here it's either a sharp burst on the brakes or very, very gentle. It's a balancing act with the 1000cc's, but we'll approach the Fogarty S's, we'll give it a big solid press as we approach the corner. As you can see, going really firm on the brakes, the rear tyre skipping alongside the track there. Something definitely worth mentioning is for the more advanced lesson, we'll learn how to balance that, but for the time being, learn the brakes in the most appropriate way by going firm on the brakes. Try to avoid the rear wheel sliding by not braking aggressively. But for the next lesson, which I'll cover very soon, we'll start focusing on how to control the bike when it starts to slide, when there's movement, and how to control the trail braking to the right spot. But for now, I'm more than happy to give you the basics, and I hope this video has helped. If it has, let me know in the comment section down below. There on screen as well, just to reiterate, it's the electronic settings that I'm using. Those work extremely well for me. I definitely recommend trying a few things out. Didn't really notice a difference between engine braking, but again, it's there for you to try. I've tried all of them, and I didn't think it was necessary this video because I just really didn't find a difference. So to be honest, I would leave it to whatever you find helpful for you. But guys, that is the end of today's video. I do hope this guide has helped you. Let me know in the comment section if it has, and let me know what you would like to see next. I've got advanced lessons coming soon, and acceleration and everything else with bike movement coming very, very soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Pleasure to do this video for you. I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Ciao for now. Oh, hi. Didn't quite see you there. Good to see you're still here. If this video didn't quite sate your appetite, then why not watch some more DrAce content by clicking the video shown on screen now. Furthermore, if you would like to follow me on social media, you can do so now, with the links down in the description. Consider subscribing so you don't miss a single DrAce video.